Welcome to the Irrelevant Podcast. I'm Nathan Jones, my co-host Alex Lewis. We are back, episode 80 here on a Saturday with Erin Murray, one of the best strongwoman, if not the best strongwoman athletes in the entire world. So Erin, thank you for coming on today. We appreciate having you on. You just want to give like a little brief introduction, tell people who you are, what you do. We'll go
Sure.
from there.
Yeah, so I started competing in strength sports in 2013. I started very, very briefly with CrossFit, but quickly started powerlifting. I kind of like the strength parts of CrossFit a lot more. So I did powerlifting for a little bit, went back to school to study exercise science because I decided I wanted to be a strength coach. And then while I was there, I met some guys that did strongman. At the time, I didn't realize they were two of the best weight class strongmen in the world, Zach McCarley and Pat Castelli. Became friends with them. They put on a show as a fundraiser to raise money for them to go compete overseas. And so I just jumped in to help them out. That was in 2015. So that was my first like unsanctioned strongman contest. And I just fell in love with it. I've been doing strongman ever since then. I was not great right off the bat. I did the national or the local show nationals Arnold circuit for a few years. But I got my pro card in 2019 when I won nationals. And then most of my resume has kind of happened after that. So I guess most relevant and most recent, currently the America's and World's Strongest Woman under 82 kilos. That world title last year was my second world title, made me the first and so far only athlete in the sport, male or female, to have world titles in multiple weight classes. That was kind of the big goal for a really long time. Besides that, last year I also won the Open Amateur Arnold. I'm pretty sure the only weight class athlete that's won the heavyweight Arnold, which got me my invitation to the Strong Women Classic this year. So I just competed at that in March. And then last year was also World's Strongest Nation. So I was one of four girls. It was me, Inez Carrasquillo, Gabby Dixon, and Nadia Stowers were the four women chosen to represent Team USA at World's Strongest Nation last year. So that was my first Giants Live show, which was a really big deal because women haven't been involved with Giants Live a whole lot. So that was another cool experience. That's kind of most recently what I've done. I just competed at the Shaw Classic. That was kind of my first show back into it after an injury at the Arnold. Did pretty well, tied for third. It was kind of a tester show, but that was the most recent show that I've done. And at this point, training for World's Strongest Woman again in December.
Who's kind of put on the best production as far as like where you've been in competitions you've been a part of? You've been a part of some obviously really big things and some really cool things. What's one that's really like sticks out in your mind that you just enjoyed the whole performance, the whole, like what you did, the production, like what really stood out in your mind that was the best one?
Oh, that's tough to answer because there's kind of different components of that. If you're
Sure.
talking about just like the production of the show, Giants Live puts on great productions, like just in terms of like the spectacle and the crowd and like there's, fireworks and it's like it truly is like a production. It's an event and it's for the spectators. That was definitely like the grandest contest I've been a
Sure.
part of. Um, so much fun. That show, it definitely felt more like a show than like a competition. Um, but that was definitely, I think, the my favorite production. There's also other shows that I've been a part of that are really well run. Like, I mean, OSG every year, Worlds is a great run show. I love that show, but it is very different when you have, 300 athletes versus 12,
Right.
like it's a very different, it's more like for the title and for the athletes and for like what the show represents and what that title means, not so much like a spectator event versus Giants is more about making it like a spectacle. So it just kind of depends on what you mean by best. I mean, competing at like the Rogue Strong Moon Classic at the Arnold, that was, I think, a great blend of the two. Like the production was great, like that stage was phenomenal. We had such an incredible audience. That experience as an athlete was incredible. And it was, a stacked lineup and a really hard show and a title that means a lot. So, I mean, every show kind of has, you know, pros and cons and
Is it
things that.
is it easier to tap in and kind of get to that competitive level when you have such a big stage and a broad crowd, or is it more of like you kind of need to go into your own headspace and when the crowds aren't as big, you can kind of focus on more what you need to do, or do you really are you able to tap into more of what you can do when that spectacle is so big on that big stage?
You know, I think earlier in my career, the crowd would have really freaked me out and made me nervous. I think the more confident I get as an athlete, I really appreciate that now. Like I feed off of that a lot. And it's weird because like when I'm actively lifting, like actually doing the event, I'm really not aware of what's going on around me. Like there could be no one there or a million people there. Like I'm very like honed in, but there is something really special about finishing something and accomplishing something and then looking up and realizing there's like thousands of people celebrating with you. Like that, you can't replicate that. And that's something that I think would have freaked me out years ago. But as I've become more confident as an athlete, like I really feed off that. And that's a really cool experience to have.
That brings up the whole. So the reason I was so intrigued by you is when I saw you backstage at the Shaw Classic, I was like, "Who the hell is this girl?" Like with the war paint and the contacts, and then I saw your thing on your Instagram, and I was like, "Oh yeah, she gets this." Like you have to go to a different headspace to be able to perform at these levels. Like how long have you been doing that type of thing where you're like really transitioning into basically a different person to go and compete?
Yeah, I started doing the makeup in 2021 for Worlds that year. And I'd always kind of been a very different person in contest than in real life. I think people that like met me at shows probably thought that I was really like cold and standoffish and probably a little bit bitchy, um, which is a very like 180 from how I am in real life. And I've always kind of had that switch, but it was like incomplete. Like I kind of tried to switch that headspace and but I still got really nervous. I've had stage fright and performance anxiety and like social anxiety like my whole life. And like I grew up a musician. I had to do like recitals and stuff. And I used to have to take like beta blockers for recitals because I would get so nervous that I physically couldn't do it. And earlier in like my athletic career, it really impacted my performance, especially because the first event is almost always overhead and shaky legs on an overhead event is makes it nearly impossible. And so like I would start really poorly every single time because I'd be so nervous that I couldn't perform. Um, so it was actually my coach at the time suggested that I start doing the makeup because that was another hobby of mine. And it was a way for me to kind of blend something that really relaxed me to start the day and added that extra layer of like truly becoming someone else, like not just acting different, but embodying someone else that like it gave me permission to show up and be not Erin anymore. Like it kind of gives me permission to not have to like chit chat with people if I don't want to. It kind of gives me permission to be whoever I need to be in that moment. And it gives me a little bit of like extra, anytime I see myself in the mirror, catch my reflection, it's like a little reminder of like, oh no, we're that bitch right now. Like Erin's not
Yeah,
here.
that Instagram post is amazing. She's like, Aaron's not here right now. I was like,
Right.
oh, yeah, this makes sense. Because like I saw you backstage and I was like, oh, this girl means business. Like she's not fucking around today. I was like,
This
because I had not,
in the comments referred to it as controlled dissociation. And
yeah,
I loved that because it's funny. It's like as soon as the day's over and the makeup comes off, it's like we'll go out and get drinks and I'm a completely different person. But like I'm there to do a job. Like
yeah, no, I try to explain that to people. Like when I powerlift, I go, when I get on and under the bar or like get on the plat, like that's not me. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's no, it's a different thing. Like you can't be this like outgoing or nice person when you have to be ultra aggressive and like have controlled chaos.
yeah, that's why like, I try not to judge anyone based on how they act at a competition. I think there's a lot of that a little bit, but I think I used to get a little bit offended, and now I realize like in that setting, people aren't themselves, and to like give people kind of that space to be whoever they need to be to do the job. And it's like, okay, then we can go hang out afterwards.
You do like a lot of visualization and stuff to get into that particular mindset, or is like the makeup and everything all you need to be able to flip that switch?
I do a lot of visualization like leading up to it, especially that last week since I'm not really training, like that deload week, I do a lot of trying to visualize. Um, I feel like I maybe do it different than most people. I think a lot of people will try to visualize them being successful like over and over and over again, which I do. I think there's a lot of value in visualizing all the things that could go wrong so that in my head I've already experienced it. Like I try to think of every single thing that can go wrong, what I would do if that happens, so that if it happens I don't freak out. Like we already played this through in our head, we know how to handle this, we know what the steps are to come back from this. And so I do a lot of visualization about the worst case scenarios, but in like a trying to learn from them way, not like a getting anxious and like, oh my god, I'm gonna shit the bed way. But
Right? You're not trying to manifest a bad outcome. You're trying to
no, I'm just trying to
game
like
plan so you know how to.
things that can
Right.
go wrong before they.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I-
Now, you said you love strongman. How does somebody love strongman? As I just got done doing my first mesocycle of strongman events, I can't figure it
Oh,
out. You guys are fucking crazy.
what events did you have?
I've been doing log, yoke carries, sandbag carries, an axle bar deadlift with wagon wheels, and
Ooh,
stone.
these are fun events. What do you not like about them?
They fucking suck.
What does
Like,
he
they're
like
just
about it would be a better question and probably
yeah,
shorter
like I
answer.
love deadlifts, so like that one's okay. But like today, my forearms are fucking wrecked from that goddamn axle bar. Like I rest them on my legs, and I'm like, Jesus, my forearms are so sore. I don't know. Like I like the aspects that I suck at them, and like they're all very posterior chain dominant. So like I know I'm getting stronger from it, but like one thing I'm tired of is getting fucking pinched every time I roll something up on my stomach, like a stone or a log or like
Yeah,
Jesus
shit hurts.
Christ. Like, how does anybody think this is fun? Or like my knees are pissed off most of the time from like all the moving and the fucking deep squatting without any sleeves or anything. I'm like, this is dumb. I can't wait to be done.
It's just different. But I like that. I like there's just more to it. I started in powerlifting. I really really liked it. I powerlifted for 2-3 years, and I still enjoy it. But I didn't feel like an athlete, and I like strongman because it allows me to be more dynamic. And the reality is, like, I'm one of the smaller athletes. I'm never going to be the strongest. And even in powerlifting, I got good at it, but I was never going to be the statically strongest. I'm just not built for it. I'm not willing to do a lot of the things that it takes to be the strongest. And so strongman is just more multifaceted, and there's elements of like endurance and technique and athleticism and agility and things that are more in my wheelhouse and allows me to be more competitive, that I really like. And I'll admit I like the kind of the shitty parts of it, the conditioning that makes you want to throw up and that kind of stuff that like really hurts in the moment, but that feels more satisfying to me afterwards. Um,
Yeah,
than
I'll agree with that. Like when I'm done with the workouts, I'm like, oh, that was a good workout. But I've never not looked forward to as many workouts as I have recently. I'm like, this fucking sucks.
it is a weird like it's back and forth at the end of the prep when like events are really hard and there's a lot of like hard conditioning and medleys and stuff. Like I'll admit I'm crying in the gym all the time, like at least once or twice a week. I'm like, why do I do this? This sucks, my body hurts, like this is hard. But afterwards it always feels good, and I've been coming back for 9 years. So
So
And it's a little ironic that you say you're not strong as you just pulled 600 pounds.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
but it's crazy though, because that was such a huge moment for me. Like my deadlift, I've struggled with my deadlift for a long time. So like that was a huge moment for me. I'm pretty sure that was still seventh place out of 10. So like it wasn't like last place, but it wasn't a winning pull. Um, but it was cool. It was cool perspective. And I think that's an important thing for people to realize that like in strongman, especially, like the points flip so much, and like to be able to be proud of something that's a PR for you, even if it's not like an event win, like that's my favorite moment of the weekend, even though it was one of my worst placings,
Right.
because it's huge for me.
I always think it's funny, like when people talk about strongman sometimes, and they're like, those guys aren't athletes. They're just big guys and big gals out there doing the. I'm like,
We get that a lot.
Go watch their. Yeah, I watched. I was flipping through to try to do some research, and I watched some of the things you guys do on a daily basis for the athleticism side of things, and I'm just like, that's incredible. Like the thing you were pulling up the, I don't know, up the stairs. You were going up the layers of stairs with that thing in between you. I'm like, how? Like in the speed that you guys have and the explosiveness you guys have, I'm just like, I would fall on my face with 10 pounds on that thing. And it's so watching strongman. I don't know a ton about it, obviously, but the amount of athleticism that you display is really, really cool. So why do people get that misconception? I don't understand why they make that.
I think a lot of people just don't really know what strongman is.
Right.
There was actually, I don't remember which post it was, one of my posts recently, there's a big long thread, people arguing about that. And like kind of scrolling through, the biggest thing I realize is people just don't know what the sport is. Like they're making arguments, they're talking about how like all you do is squat, bench, and deadlift. I'm like, well, that's actually the wrong sport. Like people just people don't know.
Sure.
People have never seen it.
of course, the ones that don't know have the loudest voice.
Of course. The internet.
I also think it's funny that everyone in strongman hates sumo deadlifting or doesn't think it's a real way to deadlift, except for there's like 7 events that are sumo deadlifts.
I personally think that's a stupid rule. There's a lot
Yeah.
of controversy on that, but I think it's weird that a sport that's so much about just move the thing from point A to point B, no matter
Right.
means necessary. Like so many other events, like overhead, it's like you can jerk or like do whatever you want, like just get it where it needs to go. But like deadlifting for some reason is the one that it's like, oh, but not that way. Like, I don't know.
Right.
It's
When you have like power stairs, like Nathan was just talking about, and it's literally
Right.
almost the exact same setup as a sumo deadlift.
yeah,
Oh, so it's not allowed? Is that it's not like
yeah.
Not
that?
deadlifting.
A deadlift, technically the rule is your hands have to be outside your feet.
Oh, that's wild. What the heck?
You see, like a lot of the big guys will do like a really wide stance, and then they'll
Right.
just go wider with their arms. But
It's almost a snatch dead. It's like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah, I think it's a weird hill to die on, but I don't make the rules, so
What is your favorite event to do?
power stairs.
Oh,
Power stairs.
that's so impressive.
Button for punishment.
Yeah, it's so impressive. Holy cow. You like it so much just because you think you do so well at it, or is there? It's just like it's always been good for you, and that's why it's good, and you like it that much.
I mean, it's always easier to like things that you're good at, and I'm good at power stairs. I think we don't get it a whole lot, but the few times that I've had it, it's just for some reason it just makes sense to me. Um, and it's just like a cool blend of like strength and athleticism, and it's not even just the being able to lift the weight and move it quickly and explosively, but it's the technique involved in coming back down, the transition
Yeah.
back down. Like there's so many like little technique things to work on. Um, I like events that require a lot of different skills. And that one, I think there's a lot of like small technical elements that people ignore that can make a huge difference. And I like that.
Now, I saw on your story, I think it was last week when we were originally supposed to do this. You guys were racing with the yokes. How heavy were those fucking yokes?
450, I think.
Jesus Christ. God, I am weak as fuck.
Amen. Preach it. Preach
Like,
it.
I just got done doing like 470 yokes, and there's no way I could move them as fast as you were. I'm like, holy shit. Like, how do I get to that level? What was that?
No, because you're a power lifter.
Well, I've only been doing it for a year and a half. Let's calm down, okay?
I do see because I had the same problem, and I coach too, and so anytime someone that comes from powerlifting to strongman, it's all those events where it's like, okay, now move your feet. That it takes time.
Yeah, I've been, like I said, this mesocycle's been like 2 months, and I can finally run with a 220 sandbag. So I'm like, well, okay, slowly getting there. Because I was always an athlete before powerlifting. That's why I trained powerlifting like an athlete. And
Cool.
that's
What's
why I was
sport?
like, I played basketball most of my life.
Okay, so you've
But
got some athletic bones.
yeah, like I can run and jump and stuff. And like I still do jumps and sprints and things, even though I do powerlifting. That's why I wanted to do strongman as like an off season, you could call it, I guess, because
Yeah.
I wanted to do the moving events. And that yoke will expose how weak somebody's hips are immediately. Holy shit.
Yeah, I've had some people that are like really, really strong squatters that assume that means that they're going to be fine on yoke because they're good at holding weight on their back, and it's not the same.
It's a completely different animal.
Yeah, the yoke looks miserable, and the way, like again, as fast as they make it look, I'm just like, I don't ever want to expose myself to video evidence of me trying to do this yoke at any point. But yeah,
We need to have you try it, Nathan. Then you can understand how impressive Mitchell Hooper is running 1,000 pounds in
Right.
9 seconds.
He's
Yeah.
so fast.
that's
It's
unreal. That is unbelievable.
I think we have a car yoke at Worlds this year.
Oh no, you guys have those again? Wasn't that 2 years ago you had that?
Yep. And I think last
Nancy's
year-
infamous injury. That was disgusting.
No, 2 years ago. Yep. Oh yeah, Nancy's injury.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Watching
so
that is just.
2 years.
Did you win that year at 73?
No, that year, I was 2022. That was my first year back up in the 82 kilo class, and I took fourth. That was another one of my infamous times where a shitty stone run knocked me off podium.
So stone is like your kryptonite.
It's so weird. It goes back and forth. It actually has gone exactly back and forth, flip flop between being the event that wins me the show and being the event that knocks me off podium. And
Isn't it? I would say most of the strongman shows I've seen, it is the last one, and it is kind of a make or break deal for a lot of people, right? Because like if you're good at strongman, you're not necessarily trying to win events. You're just trying to collect as many points as you can so that you can try to win the last event to win the show, right?
Yep. And I am notoriously very good at that, at not winning a single event, but winning the show overall.
Right.
I'm really
Yeah.
second, third placing my way into a win. But that's I kind of like this. I like the sport for that. That like you don't have to be the best at anything. You just have to not have weaknesses. And I think I really like that.
Well, I think that's the best strategy, right? And like I think Mitchell Hooper's proved that time and time again since he started this is like he doesn't win a lot of events, but he places top three in pretty much all of them.
Yep.
And by the end, it's like, oh, he's got a hell of a points lead.
Yep. And
Can't be exposed anywhere. Yeah.
I think you see that a lot, people over specializing because like people like to be the best at things and people like world records and it's flashy and it's cool. And so I think you see people like over specializing, but the problem is that anytime you put a lot of effort into one basket, it's going to come from somewhere. And you see people, they'll win 4 or 5 events in a show, but then take like 12th place in one. And you can't really come back from that.
No.
How do you keep your training fresh? Because I know like a lot of strongmen talk about how it can get pretty overwhelming and pretty exhausting, and you guys do a lot of the time. You have to, understandably, but how do you keep it fresh and how do you keep it exciting? And you just love it that much, and you just know this is part of the deal to be as great as you're going to be.
I mean, for me, I think part of what is appealing about strongman is that it's always changing. I kind of feel actually that way about like powerlifting. That I love the sport, but I tried to go back and do a meet at one point, and I'm like just doing like squat, bench, deadlift over and over and over again. Like that started to feel stale to me. I think strongman's cool because every show you do is different events. So it's like kind of as soon as you start getting tired of certain events, you'll do the show and then you'll get a new set for the next. Every once in a while you get events that kind of come in and out of style, and so you'll have something, a lot of times you'll have maybe an event for a long time and kind of get tired of it, but for the most part I think the sport kind of just has a built-in variety, that kind of naturally keeps it exciting. And like the training isn't always fun, like it's not always fun and exciting, but like I don't know. I think anytime you're trying to be the best at something, you just kind of accept that. And, like some days it's a job,
Yeah,
and you do the job.
I tell people that I'm like, it's not supposed to be that fun when you're here. I mean, you're gonna enjoy what you get out of it, but it's a process. Yeah. It's just training's hard. Like anything you do it's gonna be hard. We're not expecting it to be easy. So yeah, that makes
It's like,
sense.
and there's fun. It depends on your goals, right? Like if you're just doing strongman because it's fun and you want to feel empowered in the gym and be generally healthier and maybe do some local shows, then you have more like leniency to change things up when it's not fun or whatever. But like if you're trying to win things, like there's going to be shit you don't want to do sometimes, and you just it depends on your goal, and it depends on like how important is it for like training to be fun all the time versus accomplish what you want to accomplish. And I think I don't know how much you follow me on Instagram, but we've kind of started doing like the gym challenges and like gym shenanigans and the kind of like the more fluffy, just fun things. And that's been a really cool way for us to have fun, even when like the programmed training isn't always, but to like remember that being here is still something that we do because we enjoy it.
Actually leads me to my next question for you. The environment that you train in, I think the gym you're at is probably the best strongman gym in the country, if not
Yep.
obviously one of them. Do you think that level of competition that you guys have with one another doing the races and stuff like that really leads to you guys pushing each other to different levels because you're always competing in some form or fashion?
Yeah. And I think like, a good example, I train with Angelica a lot, and we have very like contrasting strengths. Like all of like, what the things that she's good at and the things that I'm good at don't have a lot of overlap. But I think that's really cool because we both help push each other in the areas that we struggle. And so, there's times that she pushes me on weight that like all right, well, we're gonna go heavier because I want to keep up, and it's good for me because it's a good push. And there's times that like I'll jump in on the medleys that she's doing just to give her a time to beat. And I don't care who you are, like everyone works a little bit harder when there's an element of competition. That like both of us will push a little bit harder to beat the other one in the gym. Um, and in a way that I don't think we would if we were training alone.
Agree with that. Just finding people that are just as crazy, and you guys seem to have concocted quite the melting pot of freaks.
Yeah. And then it's cool, like we have the two of us here, and I've trained with Lucas Hatton a lot, Dylan Thompson. The three of us trained for the Arnold a couple years. I think it was 2 Arnolds ago. for that together. And like that was one of the best preps ever because we were training all the same events. And it was like we could push each other, but also just you learn a lot from watching other people and like watching what works for other people, what doesn't work, giving each other kind of tips and advice and trying things out. And you kind of have like, we had like 3 times as much opportunity to learn technique and like learn from mistakes because all 3 of us were doing it. Um, like that was probably one of my best preps just because we could learn so much from each other, all training the same things.
Right. How valuable is it having someone like Grant in the gym who's been in the sport for so long and it has such a diversity in strength sports?
He's such a good energy. I don't see him a whole lot as anymore. I think he's helping his daughters with some powerlifting right now, so they come in and they do more like powerlifting stuff. But he's just such a good energy, like good hype man. Like it's kind of impossible to not work hard when Grant's yelling at you.
Fair. I think he was the first person on Instagram that I reached out to that had any notoriety, and he actually came and worked out at the gym that I work at. And I was like, this guy's actually really fucking cool.
Yeah,
And
and he's awesome. He's been training with like our small crew since we were in the back corner of a CrossFit gym years ago, and he's kind of like grown and evolved with us into the space.
back to the events. What's your least favorite event?
Circus dumbbell.
Overhead? Circus dumbbell? I could see why. That looks absolutely terrifying.
It looks
As someone
awful.
who had a shoulder that would dislocate all the time, anytime I watch people do that, I'm just like, that thing's fucking terrifying.
It's a cool looking event, and mostly that's just me being a baby about it because I'm not very good at it, and I don't really know why. Because I'm not the best presser, but I'm a pretty good at overhead. Except
Well,
that one, I don't know. That just doesn't
yeah.
make sense.
How many reps did you get on that 200-pound log at the Shaw?
7.
Jesus fuck. I don't even know if I could do that for
I
one.
was about to say, what about you, Alex? How's your log been going?
I mean, I just did 170 for 5 sets of 3 the other day. That felt pretty good.
Attaboy.
But not 200. I
There
can
you
tell you
go.
that.
That's all right.
Yeah.
You gotta get a log. I gotta get a log. I gotta get a yoke. I need to get some stones just to give some like
The
alternate
sandbag.
stuff.
Fucking
Yeah.
sandbag,
Yeah.
I think, is the best one.
I'm gonna give that to my kids and just say, you're every day, every other day that's not a lifting day, you're just gonna carry that thing until you die. That's what I'm gonna give it to them.
You can do a
Make
lot
sure
with
they're
it.
big.
Oh yeah, those Cerberus ones. That's the ones. That's the ones I want to get. So.
That's been my most favorite strongman event I've done because it sucks and like getting good at it feels actually accomplishing. But yeah, like the looseness of the sand and it not being the same thing, and it's just a fucking pain in the ass, especially because you have to pick it off the ground. Nothing about it is easy, but it is satisfying. So I get that.
I do like sandbags, but then they sit on your chest and you can't breathe. And
There is that. Like you got to move fast because you're running out of air.
yeah.
Mm.
So, what so far have been your favorite and least favorite events?
Ooh.
My favorite. Well, I love deadlifts, even though I'm not that good at them. So, like the wagon wheel deadlift is absolutely where I'm the weakest. So that's been fun to get better at. The log was a big accomplishment because, like I said, my shoulder would dislocate like every 3 months for like 10 years. So being able to press weight over my head and hold it and lock out and do that, that's been a nice accomplishment. Least favorite, stones. I fucking hate the stones. Like they just beat the shit out of me. And I've been using the stone of steel too, so it's like it's not forgiving in any way, shape, or form.
But at least you don't have to use tacky.
It's true. You don't have to, but my forearms really hate me. Like the
Stone
way it
burning.
spins in your arms and just fucking rips your skin. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I love this.
Eventually, it'll callus over.
Well, so I have really long microcycles, and it's like it kind of starts to, and then I go do it again, and it's almost like it's fresh. I'm like, God damn it.
Yep. Do it for like 6 to 8 years, and then the
Yeah.
skin's just really tough there.
Yeah, I
Don't
could
have to worry about
imagine.
it. Yeah, it's all over. It's all good.
Yeah. See, I say I hate this stuff, but I'm sure this time next year I'll be doing it.
But yet you're still doing it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but like even deadlifts yesterday, I was just like, God, I don't want to do this. And I did it, and I was like, all right, well, that was cool. And it might be because the auxiliary lifts I did are also awful. And like when I get done, I'm just completely wrecked. Like when my adrenaline's going, it feels okay, and then when my nervous system calms down, I'm like, God, that was awful. Like, what did we just go through?
yeah, and then you're back the next day.
I forced myself to recover a little bit longer, but yeah. My whole goal with training is longevity, no matter what it is, because I'm not going to be probably the best at any of these things. So I try to focus on the whole recovery aspect of it, which I know strongman is not very good at for the most part. They just go, 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 go.
Like the people that are the best are.
Yes.
You can't. For me, being the best means being at the top consistently over a period of time.
Right.
And I think in order to compete at a high level over years, you have to prioritize that. Um, I think you see really quickly who doesn't. People have meteoric rises and then burn out. Um,
What's
take
What do
worked?
you think is? Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead, Nathan.
I was just gonna say, what's worked well with your recovery? What have you done to help your recovery and keep yourself sustainable at that level?
Prioritizing sleep is a big one that I think people skip. People like to think that they're special or indestructible, and really, when I'm training hard, like if I'm training for a show, I need 10 hours of sleep a night, and that's just something that I have to schedule for and plan.
Sure.
I have a weekly body work appointment. It used to be a thing that I just did when something got injured or when something was bothering me, and it just has to be part of my routine. That's just a weekly thing I do now. Um, I think those are the biggest things. One of the things that helps me the most, I really like contrast therapy, like hot, cold, like hot tub, cold plunge back and forth. Some of that's like some like accessibility on that makes it a little bit harder to do as consistently, but I try to do that at least monthly. Kind of try to line that up with like a deload week. Because for me personally, that like nothing makes my body feel better than doing that for like an hour and a half. So
It's funny you talk about sleep because I just woke up from a nap before this. Like I woke up this morning and did my Zoom session and I went back to sleep. Like
nice.
fucking exhausted.
Just
Terrible.
recovering. Yeah.
Yeah. Being as athletic as you are you someone that focuses on mobility as part of your training as well, or is that just something you kind of have as a natural athlete?
I my mobility sucks. Not as bad as some, but it's not great. And it's hard to figure out how much to push that. Mobility without stability is not a good thing. So like it's hard to balance. Like after the Arnold, I kind of took some time off training and I used that time to work on my mobility a lot. But the problem with like working on mobility too much is that you are going to lose some strength and you are going to lose some stability. And I actually ended up dealing with some nagging injuries after that because I pushed it too hard. So it's trying to find that balance between like how much can we push the mobility without um, risking loosening things up too much. So it is something that I probably spend about an hour warming up to train almost every time that I train. I wouldn't say I do a whole lot of mobility outside of that. But I mean, that ends up being 4 or 5 hours worth a week if I just do it before training, which for me is the kind of the most I can get away with without just making my joints loose.
I have the answer for you, but we'll discuss that later. Because the way that I do mobility actually adds the stability at end range. So, but I hear that all the time, and I've even heard Dave Tate talk about like you have to be stiff for powerlifting, right? And I just got two clients who are very high level powerlifters, and I see how their bodies transformed to be good at powerlifting, but like they're getting to the point where it's so specified that they're getting like weird tweaks and stuff because they can't even get into certain positions that they need to anymore. And I'm like,
I really
I don't
like loaded stretching and more like either pairing stretches with stability exercises or like loaded and like really full range of motion, loaded end range, stuff like that. But
Yeah. Yeah. And
especially
that's
for
the word
older,
mobility is kind of ambiguous, right? Like the way I think of it is I'm talking like the way I utilize it, I should say, is it's like end range strength training for
Mhm.
connective tissues in the joints.
Yep.
Whereas I think a lot of people think, if they especially don't train a lot, they think of it as like, well, I'm just going to do yoga. It's like,
Yeah.
that's not going to help you.
I think just stretching, like I do stretch, but that's not the best way. I think really the best way is just making sure that you're going through the full required range of motion for every lift every time you do it. Like if you can do every single thing you do full range of motion plus maybe an extra 5%, then you should be set. I think most of what I see with strongman is poor shoulder mobility and that impacting people's overhead strength, and that's kind of a tough one. But
Right. 'Cause then they're having to compensate with their spine. And then,
yeah,
or like I've seen people who have bad elbows. Their lockout doesn't look like a lockout. So then
yes,
they won't get the call at a competition. And then obviously it's the judge's fault.
yeah,
And I'm like, well, did you tell them before you did it? Like, I mean,
Even
there's
if you, even if you do, like, because I do a lot of judging, like if someone shows me that their elbow doesn't lock out, like that's fine, but it's gonna be harder because I'm gonna make you hold it longer.
sure.
Like it's still not helping you.
That was one thing I had to talk to my athlete about at the shot qualifier. He's like, I got 5. I'm like, dude, that one that they called you a no rep for, that was not a fucking rep. Like, you had it for like a half a second. And I was like, one thing when I was training log is like, I will stand there and hold it and make sure I have control, because like, if you're gonna do it, like that's the way it's supposed to be done, right?
And you never know what judge you're gonna get and how long they're gonna make you hold it. And it's always just better to err on the side of being able to hold it longer.
Right. Well, and then the other thing I noticed with strongman is shit is always different than what they tell you, whether they accidentally misload something or the implement has been changed, or like, how does that affect you like mentally on game day? Do you even care, or is that something that you just kind of anticipate is going to happen? Or
It's just kind of normal. I think it really bothers some people. I think it maybe would have years ago bothered me more, but at this point, I actually kind of like it because I think it just favors people that are generally well-rounded and adaptable and can think on their feet. And I think that's part of what strongman's about is being able to figure it out on the fly. And I think there's actually something that's kind of cool about things changing last minute or like mystery events or things that get subbed out or implements that no one's had access to or that no one's touched before, like that having to figure it out on the floor, I think is exciting.
well, that was like the torque tank at the shop. I was like, what the fuck are they doing with this thing? And then we got one at the gym and I pushed it and I went, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. But like, I was making my
Yeah,
athlete
that's
push
one of
that
those.
prowler with the low handles, and
Mhm.
that was way more difficult than the torque tank. I was like, we should have just stuck with that. That torque
Really.
tank was way easier than the prowler.
Yeah, it really wasn't that bad. But it was one of those like they had them in the back, but they weren't really like loaded or set. So like we could touch the handles, but we couldn't really do anything with them to warm up. So for most of us, actually like the event itself was the first time touching that and actually
Right.
using it, which is cool.
Yeah. Were you shocked by how much harder it got the faster you tried to go?
Yeah, it was weird because I started going the first like 10 feet. I'm like, oh, this is easy. Like that was unexpected. I was expecting it to be like stupid heavy. And then it just kept getting heavier. Like it felt like it got heavier like as the run went. I'm like, what is happening? Then
Did
all
you
of
get to the point where you were just pushing it on 2 wheels? Because like when I would mess with it in the gym and I'd max it out on resistance,
Mhm.
you get to a heavy enough point that you just end up lifting up one end of it. And I think that's why they probably had the plates
Hmm.
on the
Oh,
ones at
wait,
the
okay,
Shaw.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because like you would
I
just
liked
pick it
it
up
though.
and go with it. I was like,
Yeah, I do feel like it favored people that like accelerated into it instead of just like 0 to 100 right off the gate.
right.
It kind of seemed like in watching people, but it wasn't vastly different, but it did definitely feel different than just like a sled push.
Do you find in competing, like, you know, how normally the higher place people will go last? Do you feel like that's a really big strategic advantage when you get to see other people do the event before you?
Yeah, I think especially when it's like new equipment that you don't know how it's going to behave, or anything with reps, like anything where you can have a rep number to beat, it helps. It's I think minimally helpful with something like a yoke run or like something where like you're just going to do it as fast as you can regardless. Um, so there's not a whole lot of strategy involved unless it shakes out that like you don't have to do an event at all or something like that. But there's definitely events that it's more or less advantageous for.
Now, you mentioned you were injured at the Arnold this year. Is that correct? What
Mhm.
type of injuries have you had to deal with in competing with strongman?
Actually, not a whole lot. I've been mostly lucky. 5 or 6 years ago, I had a pretty bad SI joint injury. That still bothers me. I don't think that it's ever going to be normal again. That's kind of the biggest one that I deal with. I tore my calf at nationals in 2020. I did heavyweight nationals that year. I tore my calf on the first event, which wasn't like a huge injury, which was like a muscle belly tear, but that was probably the most excruciating injury that I've had. Because it's really hard to not use your calf. Um, and then besides that, I've had some like chronic shoulder issues, but nothing like acute, like no like oh shit moments. At the Arnold, I don't like using the terminology I tore my bicep because people hear that and they think bicep rupture. My tendon was intact. I had a muscle belly tear in my bicep, so everything was intact. It was non-surgical and it healed. But that kind of led to like a musical chairs of injuries in my left arm that I've been dealing with ever since.
What do you think as like the mental part seems to be the hardest part with injuries? And like, what are the things that you found that help you overcome those hurdles when you get back to training?
Being patient is hard, but super important. I think people try to get back into it too quickly, and then they like, I've done this, and I've been playing this game recently, like staying frustrated because you keep coming in. It's like, oh, I wonder if it still hurts today. I wonder if I can do this today. And like you keep doing things that keep it like a little bit irritated and keep it from getting better. Um, Having a coach that tells you when to pump the brakes and not do shit, I think is the most valuable thing. Because I think as athletes, we're always going to want to push earlier. And as soon as it starts to feel better, like, oh, it feels better today. So I'm going to try to do the thing that's probably going to injure it again. Um, Having a coach that you trust and listen to uh, is the biggest thing because our judgment is not always good.
No, but that's why you guys are good athletes. Like I run into that with some of my athletes, and they're like, "Well," and I'm like, "I don't know, not today. Like, just trust the process." And like, I get it because I'm also an idiot in the gym when I want to just push. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, well, but it feels good.
Yeah. And even if you're a coach, like I'm a coach too, I know better. Like if I was one of my athletes, the things I would be telling myself are not always in line with what I want to do myself.
Yeah.
But having a team of people that you trust that's going to tell you when to stop, I think is super important.
Yeah, and that's part of flipping that switch, right? Is like in that moment you're not coach. So it's like, well, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
As far as like frequency with competitions, what do you think is like a good frequency for somebody to be competing? Because I know a lot of like the novice people will see how often the pros will do it and they'll be like, well, they do it all the time. And I'm like, they've built such a capacity for this. Like you're not, like, you're just not there in the very beginning. So how often do you think somebody when they're like starting out or fairly new to the sport should be entering competitions and doing that stuff?
I think it fluctuates depending on where you are in your journey. So I think mixed feelings. It kind of depends on what your goals are and how far you want to take it. I think it can be valuable when you're first starting off to compete more often, just because it gives you like contest experience, familiarity with the events. It just exposes you to it. I think that it can be valuable initially to compete more, just to see if you like it. I think once you start getting stronger and more competitive, you kind of need to back off. You don't really become a better athlete in a contest prep. Like you become good at those events, but you don't become a good athlete overall when you're training for a contest. So I think once you kind of get over that initial like novice athlete phase and you're okay, now we're going to push for qualifying for nationals or like whatever you want to take that next step, you have to take longer off seasons to work on weaknesses and build a foundation and take that time outside of contest prep to become well-rounded. So at that point, I personally wouldn't suggest more than like maybe twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, but it's hard really more than 2 3 times a year to have a significant off season. Um, I also think that a lot of pros compete too often, and it's tough, especially with the guys because it is their career. Like if you're making money off of this, and you like you're going to compete more because you need to make a living. I get that. Um, I think that's why you see so many injuries, though. Like the shows are really heavy, and I don't think you should be really pushing hard for more than 2 shows a year. I think pros can get away with doing more shows because once you've developed all the skills, like at this point, there's no event really that I don't know how to do. If I'm generally strong, generally well-rounded, like I can jump into most shows with minimal training, and there aren't going to be events that I just don't know how to do at all. So I think it's you can jump into more shows because you're not learning new skills. Um, but I don't think it's smart to like prioritize and really train hard for more than 2 or 3 a year.
God, I can't wait to send this to my athlete because he just drives me up a wall. He's so physically gifted. Like he played Division 1 football and everything's just come easy to him. And now he's hit this pinnacle of like he's competing. Like he was competing against people like Lucas, for example,
Mm.
and he likes competing. He doesn't like the training. And I'm like, bro, we need more time training and less time competing at this point because
fine. If your goal is just to compete and have fun, then sure, go for it. But if your goal is to get better, you don't get better in a contest prep.
Yes, thank you. That's what I try to tell him, and he doesn't
Clip
listen
it.
to me because I'm
Clip
like
it.
half his size. So why is he going to listen to me? Like, what do I know? So hopefully, someone who's won twice as the best part of the sport will be a little bit better influence. But I'm like, yeah, you get better in off season, not prepping for comps.
Yep. Who's your athlete?
His name's Alex Kelly. So
Sounds really familiar. I can't
he
picture.
was like really, really good a couple years ago when he first started, and then everyone else I think took more time off and prepped, and he's just competed a bunch. And I'm like, guy, we gotta stop with this.
Back off.
Like I told him, I'm like, you should not do another show till the next show. Like you didn't qualify, you didn't do as well as you should have, and we should just take the time and prep for that next year because it's one, you don't have to travel for it because we live here, so that makes it super easy. And then like, of course, he's like, oh, I'm doing the Olympia qualifier. I'm like, you're literally killing me.
Well, tell him that I'm on your side.
Thank you, appreciate that.
I'll send you the link. Don't worry, the file, and then you can just clip it immediately today and send it to him, so you'll be good to go.
Yeah.
Just immediately find it in the yeah. It just put it on repeat all the time, all the time. How have you seen the sport grow in the years that you've been in it, as far as maybe on the female side of things, on the male side of things, the influence side of things, production value, like how well has the sport grown, or what are some of the kind of goods and bads that you see or would like to see maybe change in the strongman space?
Big question. I mean, the women's side has grown exponentially. I mean, strong women has been around for a while, kind of up and down, but I think we've seen a huge growth in the last 3 to 5 years.
Right.
I remember I did my first show, my first couple shows that I did. It was like me and maybe two other girls in the entire contest, like not even just like my division, but like the whole show. Um, and so now to like show up to local shows where I judged at a women's show a few weeks ago, it was all women and there were like 40 signed up,
Wow.
which is so cool to
Yeah.
see in a couple years where like we couldn't even get that many at nationals. Um, so the interest is there. It's cool to see the sport grow in popularity just in terms of like people being interested in it. Like we have people come into Dungeon just interested in like taking strongman classes or like doing like my workshops and stuff like that. Like maybe not even competing, but they just think the sport is cool. And that's cool to see because I think that the sport as a whole grows internally because more people are interested in competing, but also externally by people just being interested in watching. Like we talk a lot about like how to move the sport forward and how to push it to grow. And I think there's a lot of talk about like getting people interested in strongman, like participating in it. But I feel like if you look at sports like football, like the NFL isn't successful because like most people that watch football don't play football.
Right.
They just think the sport's cool. And I think that I'm noticing more of that, like people being interested in the sport as spectators, which I think is huge. I think that's super important for the growth of the sport as a whole, is just people wanting to watch. And so, productions like Giants Live putting on productions that are made for spectators, that are made to be like a sporting event that you go and watch. And it's 2 or 3 hours, not 10 hours, that people want to buy tickets and go watch as a spectator, is huge. And I think them starting to pull women into that is a really big deal. Them doing their show in Vegas in like 3 weeks is a really big deal. I really hope that that's successful, because if that's successful and hopefully they bring more shows over here, that would be a big deal. I think most of the growth of the sport relies on getting more people interested in spectating, which I do think we're starting to see, like Rogue Invitational, like the Arnold Strongman Classic, like Shaw, like the stands that like for the strongest man on earth, the stands were pretty full. Like that kind of stuff is cool to see.
You
How
think so?
many
Oh, go ahead,
shows
Alex.
does your gym put on? Because I know I watched the Mount Rainier Pro Am, and that was actually live streaming was one of the best ones I think I've ever seen, as
Thank
far
you.
as the way that was
A
done,
lot of
like
work
the
goes into
way they
that.
split it up and the commentary and everything of it was ran really smoothly. But how often do you guys produce different type of contests?
So because in new space, our schedule's a little bit different. So we do the Rainier. It's kind of like the big show. We have like the pro show, and that's like our big show for the year. We do another one called More Power. That's a little bit, I guess, lower level, more of like a fun local show. It's like a qualifier for nationals, but it's not. There's no pro division. Um, and then we do just like an internal like team contest each year. I think those are the only three strongman shows. And then because we have a bigger space now, we're starting to do more like powerlifting, arm lifting. I think there's talk about doing like a weightlifting meet here sometime in the near future. But that's all relatively new since we've been in the bigger space for about a year now.
Now, when you guys do strongman stuff, is it only Strongman Corporation, or do you guys also do USS stuff? Because I know this is kind of like the powerlifting thing, right? Like there's different federations, which I think also hinders any strength sport, right? Like when it's all these, like the competition does make it better, but at the same time, it's hard to follow when it's a bunch of different, federations you have to be keeping up with.
And fortunately, strongman is not a little bit, a lot less than powerlifting. I feel like there's like 50 different powerlifting federations. Strongman, we have really three.
Right.
I don't think we've ever done a USS show here. I think we've just done
The Strongman Corporation.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that lead to OSG, correct?
No. So OSG is through Official Strongman. It's kind of confusing because it's Official Strongman Games, but then the federation I think is Official Strongman, not necessarily the same. But so that path's a little bit different. OSG has the online qualifier, and then they have their own like qualification system. But so the Rainier is a qualifier for Strongman Corporation Nationals and the Arnold.
Yeah, that's right. Strongman Corp goes to the Arnold. That's okay. Hard to keep all these ducks in a row. And then if we get Giants live over here, that's a whole nother thing too.
Let's get you a whiteboard. Just start writing them down.
Dude, it is tricky. People like will ask me all the time like what the system looks like, and it's kind of different for each federation, and then it's different once you get to like the top. Like there's a very like a clear like a sequence of events until you get to like the Arnold and Rogue, and like then they become invitationals, and then it gets messy.
Right. Well, and yeah, so like the men are the ones that do the World's Strongest Man. Which why do you know why they don't have like a women's division for that yet? Is there an understanding under this?
Doesn't bring in money.
I would disagree. I think I find the women way more entertaining to watch. But
I hear from people a lot. World's Strongest Man is just such an established thing at this point. I hope that someday that they have women too.
You know what I fucking hate about it is that we have to wait months to be able to watch it. Like, this is the dumbest shit ever. Like everyone knows the results. Like there's been talk. Like why do we have to wait so long? Like, you guys are killing us.
I don't know. I know it has to do with TV contracts, and like they had a contract for a certain amount of time. That I'm really hoping that time frame expires at some point in the near future so that they can do it differently. But I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Oh, it's something.
Going back to the people not liking women strongman, that's actually how I got you on the show. Is some dipshit was saying how he doesn't like watching strong women do stuff, but he'll watch the female CrossFit athletes, and I was like, this guy's a fucking idiot, isn't he? Like he doesn't really like. When you saw that, I know you probably thought it was funny, but like, what do you think gives somebody that type of opinion of what it is that you do? Because it was, in a sense, disrespectful, and it's like you're obviously way stronger than the person who's talking shit. And as you were talking about, like it's a spectacle, right? Like you're gonna get these people who are on the sidelines, just like they do in football, saying, "Oh, I could do that." Like, no, you can't do any of that.
Yeah, so do it then.
Right. Yeah, what are you waiting for? Exactly.
I don't know. Those comments are always weird because I feel like years ago it would have really bothered me. We all get that shit on a daily basis. Like he didn't say anything that we don't all hear every single day, and it used to really bother me. Now I just think it's kind of funny. But I don't really know where it comes from. Like I don't know. I think online people just like to have big opinions about everything. So I think that's some of it. But I mean, all of the strong women get just trash on a daily basis about how we act and what we look like, and that there must be a man, and I don't know. I think some of it's just like internet trolls, but
1000%.
The extent that it happens, I don't fully understand why people have such big feelings about it,
especially about towards one and not the other. Because it's, I mean, I don't. As far as athleticism is concerned, I could watch CrossFit over here and I could watch what you guys do and go, they're both phenomenal at what they do. So why is there a level of resentment towards one and not the other. I guess maybe because CrossFit games and all that stuff is just more relatable to people. I have no idea.
It's like at the end of the day, I know it's a tough topic because I understand. I don't know, you can cancel me too, but like I'll say what a lot of women don't want to say. Women objectify men too. Like it goes both ways. Like people like to watch people that they think are pretty. Like that's just a thing that humans do. So I think some of it is CrossFit. The way that they look is a way that more people want to look, so they can like relate and like want to be like them, and so it's different. The thing that I think is weird though is that people will watch strongman and like I'm sorry, they're not like lookers, all of them. Like that same guy was saying that like he enjoys watching strongman. So like you enjoy the sport
Right.
despite the fact that you're not attracted to the athletes. Because I'm guessing you're not attracted to like Mitchell Hooper. I don't want to make assumptions, but like I'm guessing that's the case. So it's like you're saying the sport is worth watching even if the people aren't pretty enough for you.
Sure.
But strong women are like so disgusting to you that you won't watch a sport that you do think is cool because of what we look like. Like that's where I think it's weird and offensive and like why did we have to take it that far?
Bill just said in the comments, Alex, he said weak men fear strong women, and I would 1,000% agree with that. So
Well, I would, yeah, that's facts because like I'm fairly strong compared to the average person, and these chicks make me look like a fucking pussy, and
Yes.
it doesn't make me angry. It just
No.
makes me go, "Wow, I need to work way harder." But do you think because CrossFit does this good job of pretending like they don't take PEDs, and clearly with the feats of strength that some of these strong women do, people are just going to assume that it's the drugs? Do you think that maybe has something to do with the fact why somebody may or may not be intrigued by it?
Yeah, for sure. Like we all get those comments on like every time I post something impressive, like, oh, like I could do that if I took drugs too, or like or even it's so funny, my like this my 600-pound deadlift video that I posted, people a lot of comments about steroids. There's a lot of comments about the smelling salts that I was sniffing at the
I saw
beginning.
that. Yeah, I was like, what?
Or like, well, like if I took a bump of something, I could put deadlift 600 too. I'm like, you don't know anything about anything, but people are so quick to discredit hard work by like
Yes.
needing to explain it in a different way. Like
Yep.
there needs to be some sort of explanation why someone else can do something that I can't, besides the fact that like I just haven't worked hard enough. Like it's easier to blame something else. Like, oh well, if
Yeah.
and I could do that too.
Lessen your efforts to make themselves feel better about their puny existence. So whatever. I'm like Alex. I watch all your guys' stuff, and I'm just like, there is just so many incredible people out there that are doing incredible things, and it just again motivates. I'm not strong in any capacity of the world or whatsoever, but it's just like, man, it's just like at some point at my level, I just want to continue trying to get to the best version of whatever I can be, and I love seeing stuff like that, or even coaches too, like, oh, don't you get jealous of this coach or that coach or this? I'm like, no, like those are the people that I'm like aspiring to be so that I can help the people in my immediate area because we're all trying to become better versions of ourselves. So I love it. I think it's awesome. I mean, it's just sad that the internet has become such a troll world, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think really the people that get better and do cool shit are the people that learn from people that are better than them and aren't scared and intimidated by people that are better than them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's like the pitch for having a coach, right? Is like you should take our experience and expertise to be able to accelerate your ability to get to a higher level, as opposed to like I spent 10 years fucking around not getting any better. It's a big waste of time.
Yeah.
I made a lot of mistakes myself. Like
That's how you learn.
From my mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ideally, right? Back to the smelling salts thing real quick. Do you feel like it actually helps you, or you just like the state that it puts your brain in?
I use them very rarely. I don't like them for most things. I don't like it for anything that's like really technical. Because I feel like it makes me frazzled and not able to think. Really the only I want to say like a heavy deadlift is kind of the only time I'll use them. And it's really more just to get out of my head if I feel like I'm getting like anxious or nervous about a lift, which doesn't really happen often. I in general feel like I know that if I've done these things in training, I know what I should be capable of and go into it confidently. But like that last deadlift was not something that was in the cart. Like that wasn't planned. I wasn't planning on going that heavy. And so for me, there was just a little bit of like anxiety about hitting it. And so for me, it just kind of knocks that out. It's kind of like it's being slapped in the face. Like,
I could see that. Like I tried to, I think it was either my first or second powerlifting meet on my third attempt, and it fucked everything up. Like I was so jacked up from it that my setup was shit. I rushed through it and I was like, how does this, wait, what? No, this doesn't really, I don't know if this actually helps.
yeah. And it definitely can. I understand the merit and I do use them, but very selectively, and not on every event.
I mean, you're not doing it every workout like the people on Instagram show.
Not. Some people do that.
I like how you just put it. Actually, I felt like that's kind of where I go as well. Like if I see the workout, I see what's coming, I know what's there, and I know what I have to try to go get or whatever the number is that I want it to be. And I do kind of build up some of that like, oh gosh, oh gosh, oh gosh. And then when it's time to get under the bar, if I need that, like just step back for a second kind of moment, I feel like the salts will do that as well to me. And then it just kind of makes me forget about the number or the bar or whatever. And then I can just go. So I kind of like that you mentioned it that way, because that's kind of what I think as well. Not, and don't use them 24/7, right? Like my kids are always like, let me hit the salts, let me hit the salts. And I'm like, dude, I'm hiding these things from you kids. Like, absolutely not. Like, only on like some big ones here are we ever going to use this. So,
Then like I personally don't really love using them in the gym. Like unless I don't know. I guess if you really need to hit something big in the gym, then that's different. But
right.
I don't really think you should ever be like super overhyped in the gym anyways.
Right.
Like work hard. But like that's not the place to be hitting like RPE 12 shit your spine out type lifts. Like
Yeah.
like save that for the contest floor. Like if you can't do it without that in the gym, then then it's probably too heavy for
Right.
training
Right.
most of the time, unless you're talking about those like final like comp prep weeks. But in general, I don't think there's really very often a time and place for it in training.
That brings up another good point that I see with like the novice or, people just starting out. How is it you get to a point where you trust that the weight will be there on the day of the competition? Is that just through an experience thing? Is that just through like trusting your coach? Or like, what do you think it is that allows people to have the belief that they have when the time comes, as opposed to having to prove it to themselves in the gym? Because a million times I've heard, and I've found this to be here, like people are really bad at peaking. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I hit this weight in the gym at, a couple weeks ago. And I go, that was your peak. And you're probably going to do shitty on this event. So, and then 9 times out of 10, that's what happens. But how do you develop that trust or that confidence that it'll be there to be able to go do like what you did and hit 600 pounds just on like a whim almost? You're like, well, I'm just going to do this.
I mean, some of that goes back to having a coach that you trust, and that's really big, and just following the plan and following the program, even if you don't agree with it. But that comes down to having a coach that you really trust. Um, some of it's just experience. I've fucked up peaks in the past, and that doesn't feel very good. So you don't want to do that again. And I think just kind of time and experience and maturity, I guess old age, I just like gym lifts don't matter. Like it doesn't, it, my deadlift training for Shaw went horribly. Like I failed my last deadlift session. I don't think I ever pulled over 500 in the gym. My last, what was supposed to be my peak deadlift day went horribly. I worked up to 500 and I failed everything after that. And I got in my head about it. But like that day, it wasn't worth hurting myself to hit a big number in the gym where like it doesn't matter. No one's gonna see it anyways. Like, and it's hard. It's like we all like to do cool things and lift heavy things, but it I think I've just kind of gotten over needing gym lifts to be cool. Like
How much do you think social media has hindered that thing, like
a
that you're
lot.
talking about?
Oh my
Because
gosh.
people will do it for the gram as opposed to doing it for the competition or the
Right.
actual preparation.
A lot. And I think something that I personally do, I mute everyone that I'm competing against like 10 weeks before a show. Because I think that is also feeds into that a lot, that you see what other people are doing in the gym and you think like, oh, I should be doing that too. Like if I'm going to beat them, I need to be keeping up with them right now. And that's not true. Like you need to keep up with them on contest day. But like just because someone's doing more weight or doing better than you in the gym 2, 3 weeks out doesn't mean that they're going to peak appropriately to do it at the show. And so I just mute everyone. Like I don't need to see what you're doing. All that's going to do is get in my head and make me feel like I'm behind. And I think people mess up when they try to push further than they're physically capable. Like obviously you want to push the limits and you want to like progress as much as you can, but your body is only capable of progressing a finite amount. And so if you try to push yourself more than that, I think that's when you get hurt or you mess up your peak or like you fuck up your training and like stuff like that. So just like if all you're concerned about is getting better, then eventually you're gonna reach the goals that you set for yourself. But if you try to rush that process, then that's when things go sideways, I think.
How long did it take you to get into that mindset? Like, were you always somebody who was just competing against yourself, and then the competition was a way for you to prove that to yourself, or was that something you had to teach yourself through the process of
It took
competing
time.
and getting more experience?
It took time. Say probably the first, I had to put like a timeline on it. Probably took like the first 5 years competing to stop doing that. Like I used to look up all my competitors, see what they were doing, like compare my training numbers, like how am I going to stack up at the competition? Where am I going to get points? Like, um, and there's some value in that, but I think that comes back to like having a coach who can look at the competitors and see what we need to push so that I don't have to worry about that. Like all that I need to worry about is getting better at everything. You know, I can't, if you show up at a contest and you PR every single thing, then you can't really be upset about what the score sheet says. Like if you got
Right.
better at everything, then you did your job. Then you
Yeah,
can't affect how other people show up.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. I won my last competition, but I didn't PR deadlift, so I was pissed.
Yes.
I was like, I don't care about whatever. I don't care what anybody else does, but I didn't do what I wanted to do.
Because I feel like at that point it's not about how you performed, it's about how other people performed. Like, I don't know.
That's what I tell
Yeah,
kids as a coach. I'm like, I don't care about the other team, or like if I'm coaching against, I don't care what they do. I care about right here with what we're doing, because if we don't control what we can control, then nothing that they're doing is even remotely important whatsoever. So
Yeah, and it's like if you show up and you like do your best job, like, and the other team still wins, like that sucks. Like
whatever.
that
Yeah.
feels shitty. But if you did your job, you can't be mad at yourself
Right.
for that.
I try to get athletes to understand that all the time. I like, because I'm such an asshole. I think I want them to win the competition. I'm like, I don't give a fuck how you do at the competition.
Yeah.
I'm more worried about you doing everything you can in preparation to make sure that when it does happen, you can't sit there and be like, oh, I wish I would have done this or I wish I would have done that. Like, no, do everything you can and do the best you can on the day of. And if it works out the way it works out, that's great. But outside of that, like, regret is much worse than just not being good enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, and if you don't win, but you can look back at your show and there's not a single thing that you could have done differently or wish you did differently,
Yeah.
like you can be disappointed, but you can't really be upset with yourself for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah,
especially if you're
if you
getting
had a
PRs
perfect
and stuff.
for you can't do better than that.
Yeah. I think that at the end of the day, you have to remember why you're doing it. Like, kids all the time, like they're just like, I want to win. I want to win. I want to win. I want to win. It's like, yeah, but we also like you play this sport because you want to have fun. Like if you don't have
Yeah.
fun doing what you're doing, then you're just going to be miserable all the time. Like I want you to
Yeah.
compete, but you got to keep in perspective of why you started in the first place.
And this is coming from someone who is highly competitive, and I spent years admittedly taking the sport way too seriously.
Sure.
And so I kind of had to backtrack from that and do a lot of like reflecting on what matters and making sure that you're having fun and just getting better. And I think I do a lot of consults with people now as Strong Women is growing and there are more opportunities. I do, consultations with people that are just getting started out and they're already talking about, I want to get my pro card. I want to go to OSG. I want to compete at the Arnold someday. And like, that's cool. I'm super on board and a fan of like having big goals. But I think sometimes it's like you're skipping steps. And I think part of why I've gotten as good as I have is because I started at a point that I didn't really know where I was going. And the goal was just always to get better. Like I was always just training for the next local show. I was just training to get better for myself. And I got to a point that I became competitive and that started to be something I focused on. But like when I first started, I wasn't thinking about trying to win World's Strongest Woman. I was just thinking about the next local show that I signed up for and trying to get better at those events. And it was like one step at a time instead of starting at the beginning and thinking like, oh, I want to be 10 miles down the road. Then you skip a lot of steps doing that. And I think more people just need to work on getting better. And if you're constantly getting better, you're eventually going to get to the end of the road.
Yeah, I think I'm lucky, I guess, because I don't really give a shit about competing, but it gives me a reason to be more stringent with my training and to get better. Like I found it as a tool to push myself to a different level.
Mhm.
Like I have a ridiculous goal that I may or may not ever reach, but I don't like the whole point is to just take the steps to get there. Do you find as a coach, like telling people this, it helps them kind of reaffirm the actual process and learning to love the process? Because that's the only way you're actually going to get good at it.
I try to. I mean, everyone's different. Some people are more receptive to that than others. I think there are some people that are just stubborn and set in their thought processes, and I see that negatively impact them in contest. That people that are really in their heads and so focused on like needing to hit a goal and needing to win and needing to hit a certain number, ironically end up not really progressing versus clients that I have that just trust the process and they just focus on each individual training session as opposed to focusing on the end goal constantly, continue to get better.
As a coach, what is, because I know you coach probably general population people along with athletes and things like that. What is your ideal type of client, or like what is somebody that you would love to have as like the perfect client that you know you could coach in the best way possible?
Ooh, so I mixed. So I actually really enjoy training like general population, just like people that just generally want to be healthier and stronger. I really like that. I think just training people to improve their quality of lives is really rewarding. So I like that. As far as the athletes go, I like to work with more like beginner intermediate. Um, I don't think I would continue to work with someone beyond the point of like getting their pro card and wanting to do something like OSG or like really high level shows. That's just not what makes me happy. I think I could be good at it, but I don't enjoy it. Um, I like working with more beginner intermediate people that I can like really work on like technique work and um, building a foundation with.
Or I'm to the point where I almost don't want to deal with athletes at all.
No,
Preach.
I
Preach.
mean, it always
it's
sounds fun,
very
right? Like when you
dependent on
start
the
as a
athlete.
coach, you're like, oh, I want these freaks and I want to coach people. And it's like, then you get to it and it's like, I've gotten to the point where I look for a particular mindset. Like, I
Hmm.
don't care what you're doing. You could be the best, like, post office delivery person. I don't give a shit. But if you show up and put in the effort and the work and you have the mindset to want to constantly grow and get better and deal
Mm,
with the discomfort of that, that to me is far more fulfilling and rewarding than somebody who thinks they can win X, Y, or Z.
yeah.
And I think it's partly because I've seen these gifted people who don't have the mindset, right? And they don't, that becomes the biggest hurdle, I feel like, for a lot of people. Like, yes, being physically gifted is cool, but it's also like hinders a lot of people in their ability
It
to,
hurts.
overcome those mental obstacles of like I said, loving the process. Like the only way you get really, really good, like the level you're at, you probably at some point in time had to go, oh, I have to love this training.
Mhm.
Like you have to love showing up and proving to yourself that you can get better and dealing with that discomfort.
Yep. Yeah, I think the mindset is definitely the more important part over really anything else. And I kind of I can tell if I'm gonna like working with someone kind of based on two things. I think one, kind of the first block I ever have with someone, I'll do a lot of like as many rounds as possible in a certain amount of time because it allows me to see how hard someone's gonna push themselves if I don't tell them how long to rest or how many rounds to do. So that tells me a lot. And then I can tell a lot based on how people take notes, like how diligent they are about their note taking, how reflective they are, if they're actually thinking about what they're doing, um, and leaving notes, sending me videos, like if they're invested in the process more than just training, but actually invested in learning, I can tell that in the first 2 weeks of working with someone if they're going to be I don't want to say fun client to work with, but
Worth your
easy.
time. Yeah.
Enjoyable. It's funny you say that because I just got 2 powerlifters who are like world class, and the attention to detail that they send me as far as feedback and doing things and asking questions. And I'm like, yes, this is what I want in a client. Like, where do I find more of these people? And
Yeah,
like
and I think
clearly
some people,
they're at that level for that reason, right? And it's like, well, where do I find normal people that are like that too?
and I think some people I found it's like I think some people have anxiety about like not wanting to bother me. I'm like, no, like bother me. Like as much as you want to communicate with me, please do. Because yeah, it's the people that are really like that communicate. And like one of my best clients right now, we did our first meet together like 3 or 4 years ago. And afterwards, like unprompted, I didn't ask him for it. He just did a whole write-up of like every event, the things that he thought went well, what he thought like mistakes, what he wanted to work on. And it was like a whole write-up of the whole meet and like his reflections and that was a big moment where I was like, oh, like you're gonna be good. Like if you keep up this mentality, like that's the stuff that matters. Like training hard is one thing, but there's a lot more thinking and like athletic intelligence that goes into it, that it's not just like Hulk pick up rocks. Like people that are really smart about it go a long way.
I
And
think you can start to see in strongman that that transition is slowly happening, right? Like the people that are at the top are not only complete athletes, but they mentally are looking at things much differently than I think people did in the past. Whereas a lot of people in the past, I think, were physically gifted, especially because the only thing that was really shown was the big guys,
Mhm.
where there's a barrier to entry to even compete at that, right? Like you have to be a physically gifted individual to be that size to do those things. But like I think that's one thing I notice about Mitchell Hooper is he is very cerebral and he's
Mhm.
also very well rounded in the sense that he does everything. Like it's not just getting stronger.
Yeah, yeah, you have to think about like all aspects of athleticism. That's why like he's fun to watch. Alexei is one of my favorite athletes to watch because he's not one of the bigger guys. Um, and I think because of that, like he's never going to be the strongest, but he has to be so smart and technical and just like intelligent on the floor. And like you learn more from people that have to do it right as opposed to people that are just big enough to bully the weight. I think those are the people that you learn from.
Yeah, it was interesting. The first show I went to with my athlete, it was Novikov hit 2 world records the first day. And I think he learned that that was a big oops because the next day he didn't even budge the farmers. Like
Yeah.
his nervous system was shot. I was like, yep, especially with like, I'm sure you've done multi-day events. How much different is it having to plan
Mm.
over a few days over just getting it all done in one day?
It's very event dependent. I would always prefer to get it all done in one day. I think because I'm fairly well conditioned and that would play to my advantage. Um, multi-day events are hard because when you're only doing two events in a day, it is a lot easier to go like 110%, which sometimes you need to, but sometimes you wake up the next day feeling real bad. And like Shaw, I think I wasn't really expecting to do as well as I did at that show. And so my mentality going in and kind of throughout training and going in was that it was just going to be a training day. And then it started going well. And so I pushed harder and I woke up that second day. That was the worst I have felt after a day one of a show, probably ever. Um, and it was one of those like, oh, like that was the points are good, but I'm like, I'm pretty wrecked right now. Um, in a way that I don't think I would have. Like if we had just like done all the events in one day, I would have felt shitty the next day, but I wouldn't have felt as bad for the rest of the events as if I'd had time to for everything to tighten up.
Did you, now I don't know how high elevation is where you're at, but did you notice the altitude while you were here?
I didn't. Everyone told me to expect to, and I had a lot of other athletes saying that it was really affecting them. I think
Well,
in general, if you're in good shape, you're fine.
I would be curious to know if that didn't affect your recovery from that first day.
Maybe. But I feel like I heard a lot of people saying that like in the events themselves that they were feeling like really gassed like a lot sooner than usual. And at least like within the events themselves, I didn't really feel that. It might be why I felt so shitty the second day though. Because I've done multi-day contests several times and like it never feels good the next day, but this was the worst one. Like I woke up like I don't know if I can touch my knees right now.
Right. Yeah. And I know being well conditioned, you can definitely mitigate a lot of that. But what I've noticed is, especially at the Shaw, is the people that are not used to the altitude, those second and third days,
Mm.
they are just completely drained in a different way than I think they're used to. Because a lot of those people do the multi-day events just like yourself, and it's like, well, the altitude will affect your ability to recover tremendously because oxygen's kind of an important thing.
What would you do to train for that?
Come train here.
That
I
the only
mean, so we have a huge advantage because the altitude we're at is where you get the most like benefit at training at altitude. So like we can go higher here, but you don't get that much benefit from it. That's why the Olympic Training Center is in Colorado Springs. So it seems to be we have this like sweet spot where you're able to produce more red blood cells. And I know I'm sure you understand with biology, the more red blood cells you have, the easier it is to transport waste away from the muscle tissue and transport more oxygen. So, like, we have a huge advantage in that sense. That's why it kills me that we don't have good strength sports athletes out here. But it's because everyone comes here for endurance training, right? And we have a lot of that.
defense.
Um, but yeah, I think that's a huge advantage. That's why it's interesting to watch that competition here because you'll see people that will normally do really well. And like I noticed it the first year I was there with my athlete because he did the first one of the first amateur opens. The
Mhm.
first day he did terrible, but the second day everybody else was so fucked that
Hmm.
he ended up doing really well. And
Yeah.
I think part of that was because they're amateurs and they're not used to multi-day events as much. But the altitude I noticed like affects a lot of people.
Hmm.
Like they did a pro-am in Colorado Springs and they had really heavy logs and it was ruining people because you can't breathe with that weight on your chest. Right. And people were like hyperventilating and like all kinds of crazy. I'm like, Jesus Christ, like this is insane.
Hmm.
But
So can I blame my stone run on the altitude then? Is that what you're saying?
if you want, yeah, I'll take that.
I'll take
But it
that.
is interesting that you noticed that the second day you were much more fatigued. And I would say that definitely probably played a part in it.
Yeah.
Because, if you're not getting the shit you need to be able to function, it's going to be extra stressors.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it was a hard first day. Like just looking at the events that they chose for that first day, like
Crazy qualifier.
that was a lot.
What did they? I
Now,
don't. What did they have? I'm curious. I didn't watch it, obviously, but
It was log for reps, so it was a 200 log for reps, and then it was farmers, so it was a 225 per hand down 50 feet, and then 250 per hand back
mm.
50 feet. And then there was the sandbag, so 225 sandbag, 275 Husafel sandbag into the torque tank push for the last one.
Oh,
And so they were all like heavy and like lots of reps and like medleys
cardio
and
demanding. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and
Oh.
heavy.
yeah, and then you guys,
Heavy
I
for
believe
qualifier events.
you guys had 2 more days after that, correct?
Yep.
And there was enough women where you actually had to qualify, right? Because it was only the top 10 for each class.
Yeah, I think we had 24
Yeah. Yeah.
total.
So the way they structured that, one was brilliant on the business model side of things because he got so many people to sign up and try. But two, it was, I think, probably one of the more demanding things anybody probably had to experience to be able to just even make it to the show.
That was
And
it was
then,
hard. It was a hard qualifier for that.
yeah, like he's really tried to amp up the level of how hard the show is. And that's
Mm.
something I've seen in the last few years that I've been a part of helping strongmen is like it's almost become like a pissing contest to see who can have the heaviest fucking lifts or like the craziest implements.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting to a point where there's like the point of diminishing returns almost. Because like some people will go so heavy that it's not fun to watch because nobody can do it. And it's
Mm.
like I think there needs to be a little bit more intelligence in the programming of the shows even. Like sometimes I'll see these events that they put back to back to back, and it's like you guys just worked the exact same muscle groups 3 times in a row. Like this is not like that's where I think it's interesting to talk about Giants Live being more of a spectacle. And it's like if you want it to grow, you needed to make it entertaining for anyone to watch. And if people are zeroing on stuff, well, that's not entertaining.
And it's tough. And it's tough overall. I think it's especially tough with the women's classes when, especially with something like this where anyone can sign up. And so there's a huge spectrum of ability. And I think this spectrum of strength in women is far greater because you look at like the weights are so hard to pick because like a 200-pound log per reps, like the winning reps was 8. Like that's a lot. Um, but then there were still like a third of the field zeroed. So like there's like that huge spectrum. It's like hard. It's like 8 reps would indicate that maybe it should have been heavier, but maybe not since so much of the field zeroed. But then if you were to bring the weight down to cater to the people that zeroed, then the top people would be getting like 12 reps, which is ridiculous. I don't know. It's hard to pick weights that are kind of appropriate for everyone. Um, and it's tough because people keep getting stronger. Like
Yeah.
they keep upping the weights on things, and you keep seeing these numbers and thinking like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. But people keep doing it. So like they keep bumping it up because we're keeping up, which is cool. But I also think that's why it seems like this year there's been so many more injuries than past years. And I don't know if it's just because I'm paying more attention to it. Um, but it does seem like we're seeing a lot more people getting hurt. And I think it's because shows are just getting heavier. Um,
Yeah, and I think part of the thing that does the women a disservice is I think you guys are at this weird crux where it's getting more and more popular, but you're not popular enough to have like your own pro show, like the men had. Like that's what it sounds like, especially in the weight class you were in, is like you, Melissa, like you guys are really, really high level athletes.
mm,
And there just needs to be like, I don't know, 5 more of you that can really crush those events so they
yeah,
can give you just your own pro show as opposed to having you guys all compete in the same qualifier. You
yeah,
know, and I think that's where you could see a difference in weight that would make sense.
yeah. Because some of those events could have been heavier. Like the log could have been heavier if it wasn't, you know, so the weight wasn't chosen to cater to the fact that it was a qualifier event, right? Like, so I don't know. It's hard
What
to know.
was
I would love
didn't
to see the sport go kind of back towards a more athletic direction. I think they keep like pushing the weights more and more. The Arnold, especially, I think, is a notoriously heavy show, but at some point, just making it heavier isn't more entertaining and is just going to get people hurt. So I personally would love to see the sport go kind of back in a more athletic direction where it's like, okay, let's challenge people in different ways besides just making it heavier.
Yeah, and that's you kind of see waves of it, right? Like if you look at the original, like through the years of the World's Strongest Man, there's been a lot of times where it was statically strong, like when
Mhm.
Brian was able to win. And then there's been times where it's more athletic, where like Pujanowski was far advantaged and like he was strong too, but he's not statically strong like Brian is. I
Yeah,
think like people like Mitchell and Novikov, for example, are going to be, you know, if they keep getting eyes on them, it's more athletically based. And I think you guys are probably dealing with the same thing, right? It's like, how do you find the balance of that's where like at the local level when people are just picking random events and they don't understand programming at any level, like you guys are doing not only the athletes a giant disservice, but you're doing the show a disservice because it's not even fun to watch when people are getting injured or people are just not even able to complete events.
yeah. And I wish that any promoter that didn't have experience with competing and being an athlete themselves would ask athletes what they thought about event selections first. Because you see that like it could be a cool looking event on paper, but then you sit down and you realize that like 4 out of 5 events are super bicep heavy, and then all of a sudden there's 7 bicep tears, and it's like, why did that happen? And usually you can look back at the events and realize like, oh, it's because we had a tire flip and stones and fingered fingers
Hmm.
and like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, like I think we had one here that went from max deadlift into it was a yoke carry and then a farmer's carry.
God.
whew,
And I'm just like, you literally you're working all this, it's all posterior chain. Like, give them
which
a
granted,
break on some.
a whole lot of things that we do that aren't,
No,
but
but like you could structure it to where you go deadlift log, and then you know you can throw other things in there that are a little bit more dominant in other areas to give you some type of break. Like I get
like
it, yeah,
that.
especially yeah. It's just it's I think part of that is the lack of programming knowledge, and then I think obviously some promoters are going to have egos trying to have the heaviest show.
Yeah.
And then I think that does you guys a big disservice because like, well, it's supposed to be a good competition, and if you know 3 out of 15 people are finishing the event, that was probably not a good move on that event.
It's not fun to watch.
What are the three most athletic events you feel or take the most athleticism to do?
Ooh, I think any sort of that's tough. I think power stairs. I think that's why it's one of my favorite events. I
Yeah.
think power stairs is very athletic. I think any sort of carrying medley, like odd object carrying medley, especially when it's like strange implements, because you have to add in that it's kind of like puzzles and problem solving on top of the conditioning that you're doing. Any sort of carrying medley. Back and forth. Overhead question mark, because I think some people can be strong enough to just like bulk their
Force
way
it
through
up.
it.
Yeah.
But overhead, especially when it's medleys, and especially when it's medleys with implements with vastly different techniques that you have to transition in between, I think that that requires a lot more athleticism than people think. Um, Being able to like make those adjustments on the fly and change your technique and be well conditioned to like go through a ladder of 4 or 5 different implements quickly. I think those would be kind of the three that off the top of my head would pick.
Will say in my short experience at this, the log clean and press is the most fucking exhausting thing every time. Like if you have to do it every rep, it is ridiculous. I'm like, this fucking sucks. Like,
I'll see like 5 reps, be like, oh my God, that's so many reps.
yeah, no, I started with 3 sets of 6 on it, and I was like, holy fuck, how am I supposed to get through all of these? Like, this is terrible.
It's exhausting.
Ugh. Alex, what else you got, brother?
I was going to ask you some questions about your coaching. How do you like to program for your athletes? Do you use like a linear periodization? Do you use like block stuff? Are you using conjugate style, or do you like make a blend for what you like to do? Or
It depends on the person. In general, I'll take everyone kind of through this a similar overarching structure where it's like a GPP muscular endurance phase, hypertrophy phase, speed and power development, strength build, peaking, and then events. That's kind of the general schedule, and people will spend more or less time in each section of that depending on where their weaknesses are and what their goals are. But that's kind of the yearly schedule. Because I think all of those are, and that's why it's so hard when people want to compete more often, because when you have to stay in that just strength competition back and forth, you know you miss all of those other things, the endurance and the speed and technique work and hypertrophy. And so yeah, I guess I do it like physically like that kind of throughout the year, which is why I encourage people to not compete too often. Um, but everyone's program is so different, because and that's what like strongman is cool, because you can have 2 athletes doing the same contest with the same events and the same weights with completely different programs. Because if one person is strong but not conditioned, and the other person is conditioned but not strong, then their training is going to look completely opposite. So a hard question to answer, because everyone's so different and has different needs.
I mean, that's the right answer, right? Is our favorite thing to say as a coach is it depends.
It depends. Yep.
But in general, everyone will loosely follow that same kind of
Yeah,
progression.
that same guideline. So kind of a block type thing you like to do.
Yeah.
We got to get you to come over to the dark side and train all those capacities at one time. Just fucking with you, because that's ironically, as we've been talking about this, conjugate or strongman is conjugate events. That's what it's like. If conjugate was a sport, that's strongman.
Yeah.
Because you talked about its variations, you're training all these different capacities. I was like, oh wait a second, this makes a whole lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but it always gets a bad rap because everyone thinks it's just for powerlifting. Ironically,
Everything can be conjugate.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, you look at some of the best athletes in the world, even in the Olympics, and that's what they use. Like that's why the Olympic weightlifters in China crush everybody, is because I think they have better training. Everyone will be like, well, it's the drugs. I'm like, they all take drugs. Stop it. Like at those levels, I think the
That's
training.
everyone's go-to excuse for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a jujitsu athlete. I actually texted me this week that there's a rumor going around. I prescribed her over the counter Anavar. And I was like, first of all, I can't prescribe you anything. Second of all, that doesn't exist. And third of
Okay.
all, I'm glad that you're so fucking strong that people think you're on drugs. Like that's pretty awesome.
Huge
Because that was a
compliment.
conversation we had numerous times where I'm like, because in jujitsu, it's very openly like pushed do them, and she didn't want to, and I'm like, okay, that's fine, we don't have to do that, but you're going to have to do everything else at a much higher level to be able to keep up with those people who are using that to their advantage. And clearly it worked, because now everyone thinks she's on drugs, and that's always everyone's first go-to to, you know, tarnish someone's accomplishment.
You know what? And that sucks. That's really unfortunate. But also, like that used to bother me so much when I got those comments, and now I'm a little bit like, you think I'm strong? Thank
Right.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
huge compliment for sure. Absolutely.
Right.
It changed perspective.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I understand, because even when I first started working out and I'd see people from high school like, oh, you're on drugs, I'm like, no, I fucking wish I was, though. Like, this is ridiculous, but okay.
But you think I am? Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really what it is.
You
It's
don't
Or-
just
realize
like,
but-
it's not magic.
Yeah,
Like,
people always think it's the fix. It's the fix. That's the thing that's going to get me over the top. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
I've got 5 other things on this list of what I'm looking at that would fix your problem before that even remotely comes into the picture. So,
but
yeah,
say
people,
magic,
okay.
and then I know people that have started because they think it's going to solve all their problems, and they don't train any harder, and they just get fat.
yep.
You're
Yeah,
like, why did that happen?
it is literally the cherry on top. That's why it's only a 7 to 10% performance difference. And that's like, you have to have all these other things in place before you even see that 7 to 10% show up.
And you still have to work really hard.
Really hard.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you have to have everything in place. You have to have the sleep, the nutrition, the training. Like, everything has to be at its best, and then it'll enhance
Yeah.
those things, but it will not magically make you do those things better.
Yeah, it's like people that ask me about like all like the like fat burning supplements and stuff. I'm like, no fat burning. Make up for the fact that you have pizza every night. Like maybe fix that first. Like there are other things. to address.
Alcohol. It's always alcohol. Like people don't, they just cling to their drinks on the weekend and alcohol. And I'm just like, there's your first step right there. Eliminate that. If you want to go to fat loss, here we go. Like this is the easiest fix right here.
Oh, it is the fat burning supplement? Sleep, like you said. Like, sleep helps with
Yeah.
like, I have never noticed my weight fluctuate as much as when I get good sleep as to poor sleep.
Yes. Yeah, it's such an underrated thing that people like to ignore.
Alex, you got anything else, brother? I mean,
I
you're
don't think
knocking them
so.
out. You're killing it.
She's killing it. I'm not doing
Kidding it.
anything.
Yeah, kidding a candy store today. This was right up your alley, my man.
Yeah, well, when people are that impressive, it's entertaining.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I'm obsessed with extreme winners, and to figure out how they click is, and there's always commonalities amongst all of them, right? Like, it's doing the little things and all that stuff. But thank you very much, Erin. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yes.
Fun. It's good chat.
Awesome. We'll get this up ASAP and hopefully push this out, and we'll tag you in it, and we'll throw your socials in the description so people can come find you and follow along with your journey. So, best of luck to you. Keep going. I love to watch it. It's awesome.
Appreciate you
Yes,
guys.
and we'll have to discuss your shoulder issues at some point, because I think I might be able to give you some things to help
Yes.
give you
yes.
some relief.
Tips.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thanks.